Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm back to break down the 6-game MLB DFS slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. Before we get into it, if you do enjoy the content at any point in this video, if you could please leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell, I would greatly appreciate that. YouTube continues to tell me about 60% of my audience is not subscribed. So if that's you and you're enjoying this content, that would be greatly appreciated. We got opening day underneath our belt now. It's got some of the DFS jitters, I guess, out of the way. Kind of a weird slate, not a lot of really good hitting environments. We're going to continue to move on as the season goes on and give you guys some good advice as to how we can win some money. Don't forget to stay tuned to the end of the video for my home run call of the day. And then I do offer an MLB DFS package over here on Patreon. If you are interested in some further content from me, you'll get access to my daily FanDuel and DraftKings positional power rankings, cheat sheet, daily data sheet, hot hitter statcast data, splits leaderboard, team hitting data, bullpen data, and my MLB Discord chat access, all of the above. Most importantly, one thing I would say, people that are signing up with there just aren't using me as a resource enough. Like, feel really free to message me, ask me questions, whether you're concerned about weather or, you know, what impacts what the most or any of the above. You can reach out to me in the Patreon. You can message me on Patreon. You can message me on my Google Sheets tools. You can message me on the Discord chat that I offer over there. So definitely be reaching out and asking questions. And with that being said, let's go ahead and start breaking down this slate today. So as always, we're going to break down the pitchers, figure out the best that we're going to want to play on both sites. We like to sort the sheet by K rate. It's fantasy sports. We get points for strikeouts. And the top guy on the slate today is going to be Mr. Blake Snell, taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. A 32.6% K rate, 16.9 swinging strike rate. Just absolutely disgusting stuff. Elite rates of swinging strike and strikeout rate. The problem where he has an issue is his hard hit rate. If he's not getting them to swing and miss, he typically gives up a lot of hard contact. 31.7% K rate against right-handed hitting across the board, pretty decent. A 10% walk rate is the only thing that'll get you, but the slugging, the hard hit at the road, it's not terrible against lefties. He surprisingly had some big issues recently, slugging-wise. A 500 slugging against lefties, but other than that, still a 36.4% K rate, which is just absolutely elite. So Blake Snell's the top of the list as far as our pitchers that we're looking to play in this one, and he does have to pitch, unfortunately, in San Diego, which typically is a good pitcher's park, but this time of year has one of the worst, hitting weather conditions just because it's warmer out there in San Diego than a lot of the East Coast stadiums. But he has to take on an Arizona Diamondbacks team that we're not too worried about overall. There are quite a few strikeouts up and down this lineup, and I do definitely think that Blake Snell's the top option. He comes in at 9.5 on FanDuel on the slate, and on DraftKings, you're going to be paying 9.7 for him. So, next to Trevor Bauer, he is, the top option, but he does top Trevor Bauer in K rate by a decent clip and swinging strike rate. So, and Trevor Bauer is in Coors, which we'll get to him next right here. A 29.7% K rate, a 12.3 swinging strike rate. Against righties, he has a 31.6% K rate. Against lefties, it's a 27.6, with some slugging issues against lefties specifically. Same stuff, elite stuff as far as strikeout rate's concerned, but when he gets himself in trouble, he does allow some hard contact to be had, and he does have to deal with pitching in Coors Field, which isn't the best pitching environment, as we all know. It's actually, the worst one you could ask for. In Coors Field in Colorado, the air is just thin. The ball doesn't break the same. If you're not aware, the outfield is the largest outfield in baseball. There's plenty of room for the baseballs to be landed if he allows the other team to make contact. So for all of these reasons, it's tough to be targeting a pitcher in Coors Field. Now, with that being said, his ownership should be lower than it typically would be on Trevor Bauer. So if you do pay for him, it will be contrarian, and you definitely will get him lower owned than you typically would. It's just a matter of if we really want to go there. The Rockies have a 4.42 implied run total, and I just don't think they would have a 4+ run total if they were taking on Trevor Bauer elsewhere instead of in Colorado. So just keep these things in mind. Andrew Heaney next on the list with a 27.3% K rate, a 13.4% swinging strike rate. Against righties, he has a 27.4% K rate, and then against lefties, it bumps up to it's still a 27.1% K rate against lefties as well. So very good strikeout stuff across the board. His only issue that he has is a little bit of a high walk rate against right-handed hitting, and he does give up some pretty bad slugging numbers, similar to the other two guys that we were just talking about. So with these top elite strikeout pitchers on this slate, kind of all having that issue. And as far as his current opponent today, he has to take on the Chicago White Sox, which is a team that does very well against left-handed pitching. That's another concern of mine. They do only have a 4.13 implied run total. It is in Los Angeles as far as the in Anaheim as far as the stadium. And Tim Anderson, Jose Abreu, Yon Moncada doesn't do good against lefties, but Yasmani Grandal does. They have Andrew Vaughn now. That's my only concern with Heaney. Now, with that being said, while they do rake lefties, they also do strike out a lot. This Chicago White Sox team, looking back on last year, did have a pretty high K rate as far as my team hitting data. Now, of course, this will update as we go along the season, but they did have a 25.2% K rate overall, not the greatest. 26.2 K rate against right-handed pitching, and then it dips down to a 21.7% against lefties, and you can see the slugging, the ISO, and all that stuff is really green because this team really does succeed against left-handed pitching. So when you're saying that we can target this guy, we definitely can, but we can also target the Chicago White Sox bats, so as we'll get into bats, and we'll discuss that. And then as far as anyone else on this slate, pitching-wise, those are definitely the top-tier guys as far as strikeout rate is concerned. Luzardo taking on the Houston Astros. The Houston Astros just don't strike out a lot, so it's going to be tough for me to want to really target him. He's a good pitcher overall, but the Astros, if he goes out there and throws a good game, it's probably going to be a lot of balls that are hit softly and not a lot of strikeouts to be had in this lineup, so that's my concern there. As far as his pricing on DraftKings is concerned, he comes in with a 7.9 price tag. Do we really want to pay that when we could probably go down to someone a little cheaper? I'm not too sure. We do have a guy in Pablo Lopez taking on the Tampa Bay Rays who do have a very high strikeout rate. This guy's ground ball and fly ball stuff's really good. He doesn't have the best strikeout rate, but it's decent. A 26.5% K rate against righties, very good. And then against lefties, it jumps down to a 17.3%, unfortunately, and he has taking on a lot of lefties in his Tampa Bay side. So, tough to say there. And then as far as anyone else, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I will say that Johnny Cueto gets to take on the Seattle Mariners, and he's an interesting option to be looking at strictly because the Seattle Mariners don't really have the most talented lineup. Looking at the Vegas totals, though, they do have a 4.48 implied team total, so that's not the best situation. And his counterpart in UC Kikuchi also gets to take on a team that's not the best in the San Francisco Giants. Both of these lineups really just, lack some talent up and down overall. I mean, they're getting better, but there's definitely some strikeouts to be had in both of the lineups. And these are both guys that are going to be some cheaper options that you could be playing on the slate. Johnny Cueto, good stuff against righties, and at lefties, it dips off. And as far as the lineup he's taken on today, there are quite a few righties in there. I mean, they have 1, 2, 3, 4 expected lefties, and most of those lefties are at the bottom of the order, and most of them do strike out quite a bit. So Johnny Cueto may be a interesting cheapie option. And overall, the pitching is just not very good on this slate. One guy that I kind of skipped over that I have to say before we switch over to bats would be Christian Javier here. A 25.2% K rate overall, 30.3% K rate against righties, and then a 21.6% K rate against lefties. Very, very dominant against right-handed hitting, and then it dips off against left-handed hitting, and he gets to take on an an Oakland squad that is very right-handed heavy for the most part. So I do think that Christian Javier is going to be a very good option on this slate. Kind of saved him for last, but I just wanted to break down the positives and the negatives of all of these pitchers. And specifically, I do think that Christian Javier is in a great matchup for his stuff. Like I said, really good against right-handed hitting, and the Oakland Athletics do feature a lot of righties. So I think that he's a guy that maybe he'll be talked about a lot, but maybe he'll be overlooked because his ground ball and his fly ball stuff's all bad. And you look at the numbers against righties, though, and it's just dominant. So definitely an intriguing option for me on this slate. And that's a pretty good idea of, the pitching, the options we're looking at. Not exactly a loaded slate with pitching. Ryan Yarborough, a guy that I didn't quite bring up that has to take on the Miami Marlins. And he has, decent stuff, but not the highest strikeout rate. But his matchup's very good, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him being very popular. And once again, a guy I kind of say for last because he's just an obvious candidate. I mean, the ground ball, the fly ball stuff against righties is very good, 20.3% K rate. Against lefties is a 20% K rate. The ground ball, the fly ball stuff's all very good as well. The only problem is he plays on the Rays, and his pitching length or his leash probably won't be too long. They aren't afraid to pull their pitchers early. He has an 8.3 price tag on DraftKings, and on FanDuel, he is only 6.8. So on FanDuel, I think that Ryan Yarborough is a great bargain. So keep that in mind. And with that being said, let's go ahead and start transitioning over to bats. So for bats, I like to do my spreadsheet. I like to sort it by skill and our active ERA. It's a good way of determining, how good pitchers have been overall, whether they've been succeeding or not. It factors in K rate, swing strike rate, ground ball, fly ball, all the above. And the worst pitcher on the slate is going to be Antonio Senzatella, and he's taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers in Coors Field, so that is not a good recipe for success for him. A bad ground ball rate, fly ball rate, or I'm sorry, no, a good ground ball, fly ball rate, but everything else is bad. K percentage, swing strike rate, ERA, Sierra, all bad across the board. Against righties, he has a 457 slugging given up. Against left-handed hitting, he has a 46 slugging given up. So it doesn't strike anyone out. The ground ball and the fly ball rate's good, but also the slugging's bad. And with all this being factored in and the fact that he's having to take on this Los Angeles Dodgers lineup today, that's quite scary for him. They have a 7.58 implied run total. And looking at this lineup up and down, you got Mookie Betts, Corey Seager, Justin Turner, Cody Bellinger, Will Smith, Max Muncy, AJ Pollock, Gavin Lux. Just absolutely stacked lineup. And like I said, this guy's struggles just across the board are not going to be good. 46 slugging against lefties. I would say that we do prefer to target the lefties against him. They're just even worse numbers than they are against the righties. But it's not like I'm going to talk you off any of these righty bats as well. But I would be prioritizing the lefties. I'm really going to like Corey Seager, Cody Bellinger, Max Muncy, Gavin Lux in this one for sure. And got to like the Dodgers stack. So they're the most obvious play on the slate. Next guy that's the worst is Johnny Cueto. We already talked about him taking on Seattle. Not exactly the most loaded team as far as talent's concerned. He is really good against right-handed hitting for the most part. Against lefties, that's where he really struggles. A 500 slugging, a 363 WOBA, terrible walk rate. And that's where we're going to want to capitalize as far as who these Seattle Mariners have that are lefties that can rake. Kyle Seager is the most obvious candidate at 3-4. Great play on this slate today. You got Taylor Trammell, the top prospect in the 5-hole. Dylan Moore is a righty, so we're going to slip over him. Jake Fraley and J.P. Crawford, I guess, are decent options as well. Not going to get all too excited about them. So Kyle Seager and Taylor Trammell are going to be the two options that you're really wanting to play for the most part. And then, of course, you can't stack the top of the lineup as well. And you could play Johnny Cueto against them. It's kind of a weird dynamic in this slate, but that's the truth. Sometimes you can play hitters and pitchers. But I would be prioritizing those lefties, so Kyle Seager, Taylor Trammell. Specifically, Kyle Seager, a great play on this slate today. Next guy we're looking to target is Kikuchi. Third worst Sierra on the slate. A guy that's really struggled since coming over to the MLB. Against righties specifically, he gives up a 515 slugging, 360 WOBA, not good. Lefties is it's a 462 slugging, still not good, but across the board, he's a lot better against left-handed hitting. He is a lefty himself, so that makes sense. But the right-handed bats have really been giving him fits. And I'm definitely interested in targeting some right-handed bats that can rake left-handed pitching on the San Francisco Giants side. You got Austin Slater at the top of the order. Evan Longoria, great against left-handed pitching. Wilmer Flores, tremendous against left-handed pitching. He's probably my favorite option. Second base, first base position on FanDuel at 2.8. As far as his pricing on DraftKings is concerned, we're looking at him being priced at 3.7, so still not a terrible price tag for him, but a little bit more respectable over here on DraftKings than it is on FanDuel. At FanDuel, I just think he's way too cheap, so I would definitely have some interest in him. Still not the most expensive guy on DraftKings, so I don't have an issue with playing him over there for sure, but on FanDuel, I just think that price is very cheap and very friendly, so Wilmer Flores at the second base, first base position, definitely going to be liking him in this matchup, taking on Kikuchi. And then moving further along, this is where things start to get a little bit better as far as ground ball and fly ball rate. These guys moving down the list aren't quite as bad, so we're going to really focus in on splits, as I always do if you're new to the channel. So Merrill Kelly, a 459 slugging against righties, not the greatest. So I do think that we can target him with righties. I had already mentioned Andrew Heaney's issues against right-handed hitting, and those two guys definitely have some interest in targeting. Dallas Keuchel as well. And against lefties, Christian Javier really struggles. Pablo Lopez really struggles. Trevor Bauer, Blake Snell, ironically. And Merrill Kelly just overall not really good across the board. So the San Diego Padres, he's the next guy as far as the stacks are concerned. Like I mentioned, San Diego, one of the best hitting environments currently until the weather's going to cool down a little bit, or warm up other places, I should say. And Merrill Kelly's numbers across the board just not really good against right-handed hitting. Not good. 459 slugging, 41.7 hard hit rate, 313 WOBA. Against lefties, doesn't get much better. A little bit better, but I mean the hard hit rate's worse. The slugging's better. 416 slugging, 43.9% hard hit rate. The ground ball and the fly ball stuff is better against lefties for the most part. I mean, but it's pretty even across the board. But overall, just allows too much slugging for my liking. And You know, we know some of the elite hitters that the San Diego Padres have, and they took on a lefty last time, which was really beneficial for guys like Tatis, Machado, Will Myers. But now they take on a righty who's going to be much more beneficial for a guy like Jake Cronenworth, who's expected to hit in the 2-hole. Eric Hosmer at the first base position. I'm going to like him a lot more. And Tatis and Machado, of course, are great plays as well. So, yeah, definitely going to have some interest in the Padres stack for sure. You know, it's a little bit more obvious with their 4.94 implied run total. And then as far as anyone else on the slate that we're looking to target, the bats get a little bit dried up pretty quickly. Like Christian Javier struggles against lefties, but the problem is the Oakland Athletics, as we mentioned, don't really have a lot of lefties. He's very bad against lefties, so I can guarantee a bat that we're really going to be liking on this slate is going to be Mr. Matt Olson at 3.4 on FanDuel. As far as his price goes on DraftKings, we're looking at a 5.1 price tag, so you are going to be paying up for him, but for good reason. He's a great play on this slate today, and I do think that he's going to really accelerate in this matchup, taking on the likes of the Christian Javier, the guy that really struggles against left-handed bats, and then Mitch Moreland, the new addition in the 5-hole. Both those guys are making a lot of sense as plays taking on Christian Javier, so I really do like them for sure. And then we have Pablo Lopez, who struggles against lefties. And he's probably the last guy that I'm really looking to target outside of Andrew Heaney and the righties, as we discussed. So 2 more guys really to talk about here. Pablo Lopez, his struggles against lefties in the Tampa Bay Rays. The problem is he has to take on a lot of lefties in the Tampa Bay Rays. And that's where things do get interesting. I do think that the Rays are an interesting stack on this slate. They might not get the ownership that they should because Pablo Lopez is traditionally, you know, a fairly decent pitcher. He's not bad at all, but the problem is he's bad against lefties. And you got Yoshi at the top of the order. You got Austin Meadows, Brandon Lau, Kevin Kiermaier, specifically Brandon Lau and Austin Meadows, both great plays. So once again, we have a 2-man stack from a particular team that I'm liking a lot. Gotta like them. And then last but not least, Andrew Heaney. His struggles against right-handed hitting, I already said the Chicago White Sox guys that rake lefties. We can definitely be playing some Chicago White Sox. You can play Andrew Heaney as a pitcher, and you can definitely play some White Sox bats. And I definitely do like the White Sox bats from a power aspect because if he makes mistakes, they're probably going to be going far. Tim Anderson, Luis Robert, Jose Abreu really rakes lefties. Yohan Moncada, not so good against lefties, so probably skip over him. But Yasmani Grandal, Andrew Vaughn, both those guys, a ton of power. So I do think the White Sox stack is definitely viable on the slate. And lastly, as far as contrarian plays are concerned, we can definitely be playing some guys against Trevor Bauer and Blake Snell. Blake Snell, I mentioned his reverse splits. He's really been struggling against left-handed bats, ironically. And I guarantee a lot of people aren't going to know that, and a lot of people aren't going to have the balls to play the lefties against Blake Snell, to be honest. So if you are brave and you can take on the likelihood that they're going to suck. I mean, there's really only one lefty in the lineup, and that's David Peralta. But David Peralta may be a sneaky play in tournaments that could pay off for you that most people aren't going to be playing. And the same rule applies if you're playing guys against Trevor Bauer. Trevor Bauer does really struggle in the hard hit rate when he does struggle, and it's against left-handed hitting specifically. So if you want to play some lefties from the Colorado side, you know, an elite bat like a Charlie Blackmon might not be a bad idea at all in the slate in Coors Field. Ryan McMahon, Tapia at the top of the order, Sam Hilliard, you know, maybe stacking up those lefties as a contrarian play that could pay off for you. So, and with all that being said, before I let you guys go, I got to give you my home run call of the day. Let's get into it. And my home run call of the day is going to be Mr. Wilmer Flores. We talked about Kikuchi's struggles against right-handed hitting, a .515 slugging, giving up 37% hard hit rate, 360 WOBA overall. Kikuchi throws a 95-mile-an-hour fastball about 40% of the time, and Wilmer Flores features a 444 ISO with a 591 CX WOBA against that pitch on top of a 471 WOBA. So I'm absolutely loving it. A 71.43 hard hit rate for Wilmer Flores against that particular pitch over 7 batted ball events. And then Kikuchi's secondary pitch, the cutter, Wilmer Flores crushes as well. A 571 ISO against that pitch, a 447 CX WOBA, 512 WOBA. And I'm absolutely loving Wilmer Flores in this matchup. A guy that just absolutely crushes lefties. Looking at his numbers against lefties over the 2020-2021 season, we're talking about a 393 ISO, a 394 WOBA. And when you factor in Kikuchi's struggles, you factor in Kikuchi's repertoire as far as the pitch he throws and Wilmer Flores' ability to crush left-handed pitching. I love him in this spot, and he is my home run call of the day. So there you have it, guys. Wilmer Flores, get him in your lineups. He's going deep, and that is all for me in this one. If you did enjoy the content at any point in this video, if you could please leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. I would greatly appreciate that. And then don't forget to check out my KJK DFS packages, link below in the description. Check out my MLB package, get access to all of those useful tools. And like I said, don't be afraid to use me as a resource. I've been playing daily fantasy sports since 2016. I know what I'm talking about as far as ballparks are concerned, pitching, weather, any of the above. Lineup spots, reach out and ask me those questions. I wish you guys all the best of luck tonight, and we will see you in the next one.